Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek, brought to you by LMNT. I'm your co-host, Zach Badger Davis, and sitting to my left is a little echoing here. That's okay. We're going to roll with it.
It's totally fine.
Life on the road.
Yeah. Do you mean me? There's two people on your left.
My co-host.
Oh, that's
There's
me.
only one of them.
Hi, I'm Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
The one and only. A couple reminders before we get to today's interview. First is we have a hiker meetup / live podcast happening on December 7th. This is our big holiday extravaganza. We're joined by the man, Kyle Hates Hiking, Kyle O'Grady. This is going to be a very fun live event. He's unveiling a brand new exclusive trail mystery for the live crowd there. And then after our live podcast will be our annual hiker meetup, holiday hiker meetup at the Skylark Lounge. It's going to be epic. It's going to be amazing. The holiday hiker meetup is very fun every year. Mm-hmm. This is the one where people let loose, and to combine it with a live podcast is going to be extra special.
We wear ugly sweaters.
Yeah, did we establish a dress code?
Ugly sweaters.
Okay. You heard it here first. Should probably add that to the flyer, but yeah. You can officially get your tickets for this now if you head to the link in the show notes. And there is limited space for this event. So if you want to go, we encourage you to secure your ticket fast. Quickly, we've got blogger applications open for the class of 2025. Head to the link in the show notes if you guys want to get involved. We're going to be doing a promotion this year where one of our top bloggers will get flown out to Denver and put up, and we'll get to appear on the podcast. So that's pretty fucking cool. And lastly, but not leastly, if you guys enjoy this podcast, head on over to patreon.com/backpackerradio. We're doing a lot of exclusive content as of late. We recently wrapped, I don't know how you described what we did with Viking and Cuckoo, but
Guy stuff preview.
Yes.
The girl stuff episodes have been a hit. We've got 3 of those in the bag, but the guys haven't had their own stuff episode. And there was a laughing joke about, like, do we really need a guy stuff episode, or is it all self-explanatory? And then I was like, boy, let me ask some questions. And I've got a lot.
We only hit the tip of the iceberg. I had to end it prematurely because, that ended up being a marathon episode. But
I'm a curious girl.
Yeah, that one is definitely a wild card. And there were some moments in the non-Patreon episode, which one of our guests asked us to censor out. And then as soon as we got a Patreon, he's like, yeah, so this is exactly what happened. So if you want the uncut version, he volunteered it on his own regard. Okay, let's get right to today's interview. This is the person I've known the longest in the world of thru hiking, and legitimately since second zero of me entering into the realm of hiker trash. This is none other than Ian Mangiardi, who's a thru hiker, producer, and explorer. In addition to the Triple Crown Trails and the Arizona Trail, Ian has produced a variety of adventures, including the King's Challenge expedition in Bhutan.
Yes, sir.
A paleontological mapping expedition in the Gobi Desert of Mongolia, and photo shoots atop glaciers in remote Alaska. With Andy Laub, also former guest of the podcast, Ian produced the thru-hiking documentary As It Happens about his PCT experience in 2011. Ian, thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio.
Thanks for having me. It's been a few years coming, huh?
We've been trying to make this happen for a long time. I'm very excited.
I walked right past you, and then I went home.
All we had to do was fly out to New York to make it happen, and here you are. Yep. Okay. I usually ask people's trail names. We're going to get to that in a second. I do want to talk about the origin story here because, like I mentioned at the top, you are the first person that I was introduced to in the world of thru hiking. Do you remember the story?
To be honest, no.
Okay.
I remember you reached out to me. We started talking, and that was the start of our history.
You were very gracious with your time. I was living in San Diego at the time. This was, I would say, like the early days of Twitter when like it was still a vibrant networking machine. And I had just moved to San Diego. I was trying to make a lot of new friends, and I was using social media as an actual resource for that to happen. I got linked up with a gal named Jen Friel, who at the time had a huge following. I don't know what she's up to nowadays. She had a website called Talk Nerdy to Me Lover. And she retweeted something that I posted because I just put out in the universe, like, I'm going to be thru hiking the AT. Does anyone know anything about this? She retweeted it. A fellow by the name of, Josh. Did I put it in the notes? Josh Turner of Camping Gear TV is like, I don't know anything, but I have a good buddy who actually recently hiked the AT, and he put us in contact, and the rest is history.
That, I think, was actually my first podcast.
Wow.
was with Josh Turner.
Camping Gear TV.
Camping Gear TV
Yeah.
sounds straight out of the 80s.
It was close.
Yeah.
It was close.
Yeah, if you could get the mic a little bit closer. Yeah, so very grateful to you because you literally, in addition to like showing me what gear to bring and to not bring, you served as my therapist going into this thing.
It was great.
I was so anxious going into the AT. I run anxious in general. I'm very risk averse, and like more so than like what tent do I bring? I was like, so am I gonna get eaten by a bear? What do I do when I cry? Like all these things, and like
What do I do when I cry?
Yeah, yeah. Legitimately, Ian was there for me the entire every step of the way leading up to the trail, and even once I got to the trail. So yeah, just want to say
you were basically the guinea pig. You were the first. We called you camels for a while, and that was the folks who were reaching out to us to get out on the trails, but didn't necessarily know what they wanted to do. And we actually started a nonprofit organization called the Dusty Camel. And through that organization, we were trying to give back to people because we were given so much on our Appalachian Trail experience. We needed to find a way to give it back. So through the Dusty Camel, you were the first camel. So I was super excited. I was like, oh man, this is actually working. Someone's actually interested.
Yeah. No, it definitely worked. It was an awesome resource to have the insight of somebody who had gone on the trail before me. So thank you for that. And speaking of your organization, that's a perfect segue into the trail name origin story.
Yeah. I am Dusty. That is my trail name. The Dusty Camel is what Andy and I were known as. So sometime in Tennessee, some older couple were hiking next to us, and they're like, oh, what's your trail name? And I'm like, oh, that's Camel, and I'm Dusty. And she just looks at us, and she goes, oh, the Dusty Camel. And we're like, you know what? That kind of got a little ring to it. So from that point on, we kind of only signed the trail registers as the Dusty Camel, which was very confusing to a lot of people because they'd catch up to us and be like, I thought you were just one person.
Yeah.
We're like, no, it's actually Dusty and Camel.
Yeah.
But together, we are known as the Dusty Camel.
Does he still go by his trail name? I guess he's doing remote enough hikes now where you're not like interacting with the masses, but is he still going by Camel on trail?
I don't think he's going by any trail name really, because when he's on his trails now, he's in work mode. Yeah. Like he enjoys it. He's there. He's present in the moment, but he's really out there to film his adventure and kind of share his story. So he's focusing on the story rather than who he is in the story.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk about your guys' introduction to one another, because if memory serves, you started the AT ridiculously early in 2009.
Yeah, we both started ridiculously early. I started on February 1st because I'm from New York City. I'm like, oh, it's the South, Georgia. It's going to be warm.
Yeah.
Does this sound familiar?
It sounds very familiar.
I had the same conversation with Zach leading up to when I did it, and I was like, I'm going to start February 1st. It's Georgia. It's going to be warm.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Zach was like, I must advise you do not.
Yes. And I brought a 30-degree sleeping bag because I was like, it
doesn't snow in Georgia.
It's not going to snow. It's not going to be colder than 30 degrees, right? Wrong.
Yeah.
So that first night I was out there, it was negative 10 degrees with the wind chill, 20-mile-per-hour winds, snow up on the top of Blood Mountain. By day 4, when I got to Mountain Crossings, I was done. I was ready to go. I was cooked. I was frozen, quite literally, and I was like, that's it. I stayed at the hostel over there, and that's where my trail name came into play because I was working at the store to pay off staying in the hostel. And because I'm slightly OCD, I was getting into every little corner with the dust buster and making sure everything was dusted, and they start calling me Dusty. So that's where my trail name came in. I was about ready to go, and then I was communicating with the girl at the time that I was dating, and she was like, yeah, give it another couple days. Just, see how it goes. Next day, I'm like, no, I'm checked out. She's like, how about this? We're going to break up. I'm like, oh, all right, I guess I'm staying on the trail. Because we did live together at the time. Yeah. And I call Mom. I'm like, hey, Mom, can you move my stuff out? I got some miles to walk. And that was it. I kept on going. And that day that I decided to keep going was also the day that I met Andy.
Fate works in mysterious ways.
It does.
But we do got to talk about the breakup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it related to the AT in any way? Because that's pretty early on.
No, it wasn't really related to the AT. The AT was kind of an opportunity for us to take some space and kind of reprioritize what was important to us. I guess I didn't realize that she already had reprioritized.
Yeah.
And it only took her 4 days to figure that out. But it was kind of not going so great at that time.
Sure.
So we took that time to explore what would happen. And
that's an especially bitter pill to swallow when you're freezing your ass off on this adventure
really
where you
bad.
don't know what you're getting yourself
really
into.
Yeah. And that's why I ended up spending 3 more days at mountain crossings in the hostel, just being like, I'm going to wait till this weather dies down. I'm going to wait until
I don't have an apartment to go back to. So
Exactly.
this is where I live right now.
I need some kind of motivation. And right now I'm lacking any kind of motivation.
Yeah. I want to backtrack. You mentioned on the first day it was -10 with the wind chill in a 30-degree sleeping bag.
Oh man, it was brutal.
Which is probably not even sufficient for like a March 1st start, let alone a February 1st.
Yeah. I learned quickly.
Yeah. Are you doing push-ups in the sleeping bag? Like, how are you staying alive?
I was wrapping myself in every type of emergency blanket I had, and I had a tent that I actually put inside of the shelters so that I would get some extra wind protection. And since it was February 1st, there wasn't anybody on the trail, so I didn't have to fight for any space.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the 3rd night maybe that I heard coyotes, I'm assuming, underneath the shelter that I was like, okay, what am I doing right now? I don't know. I'm a little city boy. This is probably my 5th night backpacking on my own ever, and I'm ready to go home. But yeah, it was cold. It was brutal, but that really gave me the opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to push through. I'm going to persevere. And then I was rewarded, like I said, by meeting Andy. He came in one day and was like, oh, hey, we're kind of the same age. We're kind of from the same area. You want to do this thing together? There's no one out here.
Yeah. What was your outdoors what was your outdoor experience prior to the AT?
I was a Boy Scout. And I loved Boy Scouts when I was a kid. I was, contrary to popular belief, born and raised in Manhattan and a Boy Scout because we do outdoorsy stuff in the city.
Is that like City Park, or does that? I don't know anything about the city, so you could say a different park, and I'll be like, oh, I don't know.
Central Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did I say?
City Park.
I was about to ask, did you just make up a name and hope that it worked?
That's definitely the park that I meant.
There is a park in the city. There's many, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, we'd go camping out in the sticks of Westchester.
Stop it.
Yeah.
He's talking about near where I'm from.
Yeah. My girlfriend is actually from Westchester, and I like to give her a lot of flack for being from upstate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's where we're headed next, so I can't wait to experience
We're
it.
headed to the real upstate.
Yeah.
Upstate from Manhattan is anything that's not Manhattan
Yeah, sure.
and north.
Yeah.
Basically, anything north of the Bronx, and even parts of the Bronx are kind of upstate.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, Boy Scouts, were there any backpacking trips aside?
No, I mean, my family, when I was younger, we spent a lot of time kind of going out west, being outdoors, nothing super intensive, some backpacking trips here and there. I do remember hitchhiking when I was probably 8 years old in Wyoming or Montana with my mom. And the only image that I really remember about that was people were passing us. They turn around because they see she's with a kid, tell us they're sorry for not picking us up, and then leave. Like, okay.
I'm going out of my way to rub it in that I'm not going to pick you up.
I'm glad you feel bad, but that's not helping us right now.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was a city life.
Yeah.
And I think what happened really was when I got into high school, I realized or was told by the general public that being a Boy Scout was not cool. Wanting to have a girlfriend at that time, Boy Scouts, I could not do that because I was one of those kids who came in with their uniforms on the days that we met being like, hey, everybody, look at me. I had to tone that down for a little bit. And then when I was in college, I took a semester off and I was like, hey, what can I fill my semester with that'll be fun and enjoyable? I haven't gone camping in 3, 4, 5 years, however long it was. I'm going to make up for it by doing 4 months of hiking and camping because, I need to make up for it.
Yeah.
So then I went out basically cold turkey, having not camped for 5, 6 years or in my semi-adult life and just jumping straight into it.
How did you learn about what was the right gear and all the logistical preparation? Not that the AT requires much logistical preparation, but at least the gear. Like, what are you leaning on what you learned from the Boy Scouts, or what was your strategy there?
What I learned from the Boy Scouts was I'm a total nerd. So I did a lot of research on gear, and really that's kind of what built the Dusty Camel, the organization, was my love of researching gear and equipment and finding out how to make your experience comfortable. Because what I found for me personally was no matter how difficult the days got, if I had the one thing that would make me tick throughout my hike, whether that's a pillow or a little stuffed animal or whatever your comfort item is, by being able to balance your equipment by having all the lightweight stuff so that you can bring that extra heavy, it worked for me. And that made me want to help other people, because going through the gear is half the battle.
Yeah.
Did you bring a stuffed animal?
I did on the PCT.
What was your stuffed animal?
It was a meerkat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why?
Another girl I was dating at the time.
Who broke up with in Montreal?
Yeah.
No, that one
I'm
actually
joking.
stuck around that time. I was 2 for 3. 2 for 3 in terms of getting broken up
Breakups.
with.
Yeah.
That one stuck around for a little bit longer,
Yeah.
but it's no longer in the picture. And then on the CDT, I was also broken up with. And in fact, that is the reason why I didn't come see you.
I wasn't going to air the dirty laundry.
Oh,
that
no,
you just
air
did.
it out. It's all good. I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Ian was going to come on the podcast when he cycled through the CDT, and he had a change of heart at the last minute. And
yeah, I didn't necessarily have a change of heart. My heart was changed for me. So I was in a very confusing time trying to figure out what I was doing on the trail, what I was doing in life, what I was doing with my personal life, professional life. So it was just a flurry of craziness.
yeah.
Let's say in the hypothetical future you have a girlfriend and you're considering a long trail in the U.S. Are you going to be worried to do it because
No.
of your track record?
Absolutely not. No, they know what they sign up for from the get-go. So
Yeah.
really, it's my fault for not impressing upon them that I'm serious.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of the time women will be like, or people in general will be like, oh yeah, no, totally. I'm fine with that. That's no big deal. And then when push comes to shove, they're like, oh, you're going to be gone for how long?
Yeah.
I'm not going to see you for how long?
Yeah. So it sounds like on the AT, you weren't totally caught off guard with the breakup. Since we're on the subject, how would you rank the surprise factor on the CDT?
So the CDT one was a tough one, because there was this, actually, funny enough, it was the PCT girlfriend was the last girlfriend that I had at the time. And the time between the PCT and the CDT was about 10 years. So there was a good 8-year gap between when I was really seeing someone. So I was really excited. And I was like, oh man, yes, I still got it. I'm going to have a relationship again. I'm so excited, so excited. And I knew she had not hesitations or reservations, but she had just come out of a relationship herself, and I was going away for 6 months. So there was a little bit of that kind of, how are we going to figure this out? But we were both willing to figure it out. Mm-hmm. One day I remember I woke up and there was a disturbance in the force, and I was like, something's just not right. So I shoot her an email, because we were kind of on a little iffy spot at the moment, and I didn't have much service. So I was like, hey, just want to say hi, make sure everything's all right. And that's when I got the email.
You got broken up with by email?
No, it gets better than that. So I get the email, we need to have a talk. And I'm like, I'm literally walking up a mountain. I am walking up and over Hope Pass, mind you. Not just any pass, but the single steepest mile.
Most annoying climb.
It's a terrible climb, especially when you have weather coming in and you see lightning bolts and you lose service. And then all of a sudden on my inReach, I'm messaging her being like, I don't have service. I don't know what's going on. So I get broken up with over inReach.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
She fit it into what, 160 characters?
Oh, no. It came in multiple pieces.
Out of order?
Out of order. And she's like, I responded to that 5 minutes ago. And I'm like, I didn't get it yet. So here I am, sitting up Hope Pass, bawling my eyes out like a little girl, being like, no, this is why I don't date. I beelined to the nearest town. I can't even remember.
Twin Lakes?
Yes, Twin Lakes. Beelined to the bar. Just sat there. I was drinking myself silly, and I don't drink. And that was the start of the decline for me, if you will. But yeah, so it was maybe not unexpected, but it definitely hurt the most.
Yeah.
Was the most impactful.
Not unexpected, but not expected and tragic.
I was hoping over Hope Pass that
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to hope for this.
Yeah.
But so it goes.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, the real tough part after that was for the first 10 or 1,000 miles, 1,100 miles or so, I had her as a crutch because I was alone and I had someone I could kind of be like, oh, I saw a really cool rock.
Yeah. You had your Houston control center, basically.
Exactly.
She's
you know?
like over there getting the ick.
Yeah, she's like,
Oh, what is this like?
he keeps
The
texting me rocks.
the Boy Scout side is coming
Oh yeah,
out.
no,
She's like, wait,
full
what?
on. There was full on it going on, and here I am, like, oh, there's a little heart-shaped rock, and it reminded me of you. How are you? I miss you. Ooh. So yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
But you know, I think at the end of the day, the right woman's going to be the woman who not only supports me through the process, but is excited to encourage me through the process. And that was something that she was very middle of the road about. And I took the middle of the road approach, being like, oh, she's open to it, when I should have been like, you need more than middle of the road approach when going into a thru hike.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a great way to kick the tires. Like if she's not going to support you when you're doing this thing and that's important to you moving forward, you know, something's going to come at an impasse eventually.
Exactly. And basically from that point on to Yellowstone, I was alone, completely alone, no crutch, only in my mental battles of where did I go wrong?
Do you feel like you
Jeez.
do you feel like you ended that hike stronger than you started it mentally? Because I know for a lot of people, like they go through long periods of isolation and it can break them to the point where they just get off trail and like they don't even regret the decision of getting off trail. It's like, I'm just so broken. I don't enjoy this. Get me off trail. And some people have revelations and they're able to sort through things. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
Oh, it broke me. It 100% broke me. I went home. And that's at the point when I was like, I can't do the podcast. I don't even know where I'm going to be right now. So I went home and in my mind, I was like, I'm just going to try to figure things out. Next year, I'll pick back up, finish the second half. And my little brother, who is 23 years old and 6 inches taller than me, so he's not very little, but he is younger than me. He and I had planned a hike in Colorado on the CDT around 4th of July. And it was just before that I came back. And I didn't want to be that asshole brother who was like, well, somebody hurt me, so we have to cancel our trip.
Christmas is canceled.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't going to be that guy. So I was like, all right, Nathan, I'm going to fly out with you. We're going to go out together. There's a 30% chance I'm just not going to come home with you. So
That's a better problem than not doing it at all.
Exactly. So I kind of took that opportunity, and I give him a lot of credit because I kind of used him as an excuse to be like, well, I have to get back out there. Mm-hmm. And now, I mean, as soon as I step foot on the trail in Colorado, it's like, I'm not going home.
Yeah.
I got a lot more miles to go.
Yeah.
I can't finish this.
How long were you back home?
I was home for about 5 days, 6 days maybe.
Yeah.
So it was enough time to have a little bit of a gap mentally, physically, reassociate myself, but still be in the thru hiker mentality and still be in that mindset of pushing forward.
I remember that was one of the pieces of advice that you had given me, that like if I really hit a hard point on the trail, take a 0, take 2 zeros, take 3 zeros, because like oftentimes that's long enough to remind you of why you got on the trail in the first place. And I never got to the point where I wanted to quit, but there were situations where like even after a full 0, I went into it so happy to be in town, and by the end of the 0 I'm like, get me back on trail. Like it's there's something about just time away from the trail that reminds you of like, you know what, it's actually not that bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the CDT as a whole for me was very difficult because before I lost the girl that I was dating, I lost my best friend because he started the trail with me and made it about 100 miles, and we haven't spoken since.
What happened there?
Yeah.
A little friend fight?
A little friend fight, to say the least. So, dear old Ben, he was really my closest friend for 6-7 years or so, and he had always heard about my thru hikes and was always excited and interested, and we were very similar in many ways. And I was like, a thru hike would do you really good. If it doesn't break you, it would do you really good.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, no, that sounds great. So I was getting ready to do the CDT, and I was getting ready to do it in 2020 but as we all know, I couldn't do that. A lot of people, especially on the CDT, were saying the only resupply options that you have no resupply options. So for the CDT specifically, it was a little harder to kind of sneak in and go along the trail. So we ended up postponing the trail a year. And he was like, all right, I'm in. I want to do it now. And I'm like, okay, well, just so you know, we have this time period. This is when I'm going to start. And this is what the plan is. He's like, okay, you know, maybe I will do it. Maybe I won't. 3 months before, he's like, sorry, can't do it. Like, cool, no big deal. But if you change your mind, you need to do it now. Of course, a month before, he's like, actually, guess what? I really want to do this with you. Like,
Surprise.
all right. And he's like, but the problem is I got this really big job, you know, the week that you want to leave. So if we could push it a week and a half or so that I could get this job and basically pay for the trip for me. And I'm like, all right, well, here's the thing. This girl that I'm starting to see, I'm really trying to make it work with her. So we're planning times for her to come out to visit, which means I need to be at this mile marker on this day so that I can hitchhike to Santa Fe and spend a weekend with her. He's like, yeah, no problem. So he's like, all right, yeah, I spend like an hour a day on the stationary bike. I'm going to be nice and fit for this trail. I'm like, yeah, all right, cool. What else are you doing? I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't prep for trails at all, but I also understand at this point,
You're in the last leg of your Triple Crown. Like,
yeah,
it's
like
different.
I can push myself. I know where my body's going to break. I know the pain in my knee is going to be there at mile 600 to 800, no matter what I do. And he didn't quite understand that, regardless of how many times I'd tell him this is a terrible, terrible experience. And if you can get through the terrible experience, it's going to be the most life-changing experience you could ever possibly imagine. So we start the trail, and I'm like, okay, well, because we started 10 days late, we need to start with 20-mile days. And we need to do that for the first, 10 miles, or 10 days, rather. Well, 12 comes along, he's like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't know.
12 noon?
12 miles.
12 miles,
Yeah,
okay.
So, it's pretty good, good. For a brand new hiker, we had only hiked about 60 miles on a little prep hike together. So, pretty good for him, but it's like, we need to make at least 17 miles. So the first night, he's hurting at 17 miles, and I'm like, we have 3 more days to get to Lordsburg, and those are big mile days. And I just kept pushing him while trying to support him. But the difficulty when you're trying to support someone on a thru hike, especially when you're so close to them, invested in their progress, you're draining your own energy twice as fast, because I had to pretend to be happy and excited and not like I was feeling like shit the whole time, because I was like, rah, rah, rah. Oh God, my knees hurt too. But no, he was complaining about his knees. Like, I know how my body works. I know how my knees work. The first time we got to a hiker area, 5 people had the same knee problem he did. And he was like, oh, no, it's different. It's different. Okay. Did you talk to them? No, I don't need to talk to them. Yeah. Like, okay. So then we take 1 day off. We take 2 days off. And I'm like, on the 3rd day, I tell him, I'm leaving. I don't want to push you. If you don't want to keep going, don't hurt yourself, but I need to get going. So then he goes up to Albuquerque for a week and then decides that he doesn't want to do the trail anymore. We end up having our Santa Fe weekend, but because I didn't have the amount of days I was supposed to hike, I only made it to Pie Town. So to get from Pie Town to Santa Fe was quite a trek. I was fortunate that someone was actually getting off trail from Albuquerque. So I got to Albuquerque, and then Albuquerque to Santa Fe was a little easier to get to. We had our weekends there. We ended up, or he drove me back to the trail in my rental car. And he's like, I'll drop it back at the airport when I go home. Great. Say goodbye. You know, good luck. Chat when you're done. The next day, I'm hiking out of Pie Town, and it's like a 40-mile stretch of dirt road. Nothing exciting or interesting, just zoned out, kind of like, oh, I had a weekend with this girl. It kind of went well. It kind of didn't go well. What's going on with this dude? You know, my best friend's kind of not being my best friend right now. And then I get an email because the little service comes in from the rental car company being like, oh, here's your bill, $270. I'm like, what the fuck? He didn't fill up the gas in the car before he dropped it off. And so they charge, you know, $10 a gallon or whatever. I'm like, dude, why didn't you fill up the gas? It's like, oh, you didn't tell me to. Like, dude, you're right. I didn't. I'm sorry. But it's a rental car. You shouldn't. And he's like, oh, you didn't say blah, blah, blah. And we used to work together in production. He's like, well, every time in production, whenever we did it, you know, you'd always pay for this and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, this doesn't work, dude. This is, you know, like, whatever. You should have just said something, you know. You don't need to be all nasty about it. And then it was just back and forth altercation. I'm like, I don't need this from you. And that was that. I was like, we'll talk when I'm done with the trail, and haven't spoken since. That was 3 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
So then from that point to
just
Colorado.
Quick aside, it should be criminal that a rental car company can charge $270 for a tank of gas.
Yeah. Here I am spending $270 on like a month of ramen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's criminal.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. You were.
So anyway, that was a tough stretch from being at that point where I was actually excited to get some miles under my belt. Because from that point on, I was doing 25, 30 mile days because I was so excited to not be held back. And I don't want to say held back because I felt he was holding me back. It was a new hiker and I was happy to go a slower speed, but now not having to worry about someone else's happiness, I could just put my head down and truck it, which was also my downfall because I could never stick in with a single group because some days I do 35 miles, sometimes I do 20 miles, and there was no single group that was doing crazy or uncrazy miles as infrequently or frequently as me.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess since, correct me if I'm wrong, since meeting Andy, have you ever really hiked with a different group of hikers?
No. So Yosemite is when I met Hoboto on the CDT, and he became my newest Tramley member, and we finished the trail together. So that was about 1,500 miles or so. And then up north, can't remember where exactly, maybe Lander, we met another hiker who we renamed Skeebs. I think her name was Scout at the beginning, but there's lots of Scouts out there. And
yeah.
It was given to her in an unceremoniously way, and we were like, we can do better than that. Mm-hmm. And I don't even remember how it became Skeebs, but so it does.
Yeah.
But then we finished all three of us together. And in the last 50 miles, we picked up another guy who was going for his Triple Crown. So we had 2 Triple Crowners finish and 2 first-time thru-hikers finish all together.
So we've obviously jumped the timeline quite a bit. We started off with
like
no, it's good. This is how it goes on Backpacker Radio. We started off with the first week of you starting the AT, and we just ended the Triple Crown.
Yep,
I feel like there's more to cover. I want to talk about. There's a couple things I want to talk about. Let's start off with when you first met Andy. You said at Mountain Crossings. He walked in when you were at your low.
Yep.
Did you guys just vibe out instantly, or was it just the fact that there was somebody else hiking the trail that early?
It was a little bit of both. So I had seen this guy on the trail, and I saw him again at Mountain Crossings, and we had loosely talked about spending the night together at that first campsite. And he was a military guy, so his pack was way heavy and didn't have any lightweight stuff whatsoever. So he was a little slower. So Andy passed him, and he told Andy to relay a message to me that he wasn't going to make it to the shelter that we had planned to. And from that point on, it was just kind of like, well, there's no one else out here. Let's just do this together, because it's better to do it alone or with someone than alone. Mm-hmm. And homeboy was doing it with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, with crampons and like 1970 ski jacket. Like, talk about not needing the right gear for the AT. He didn't have the right gear for the AT.
Okay, but peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are so good on trail.
Oh my!
They're so good.
my tramley on the CDT called me Dusty the Uncrusty, because Uncrustables were my favorite thing on the trail.
I love bagging out Uncrustables.
Oh man, they're my favorite. And now they're coming out with raspberry. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they're coming out with raspberry.
Oh, see, I'm a strict grape girl.
Grape were my preferred, but raspberry is number one. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, not in February when it's, between 20 degrees and negative 10 degrees out.
Sure.
Having a warm meal is good. And I was overly prepared for that trail. So I had a bunch of backpacker pantries and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, dude, do you want it? I've got a 2-person tent and an extra meal.
You want to come home with me tonight?
Freezing. You want to cuddle? And we cuddled the entire way.
Wow. Yeah. Love.
I recall too many details from your hikes. I also remember you're saying that in 2009, it was an especially wet year on the AT, right?
Yeah. It was a really wet year. It was the coldest year on record at the time. We had to somehow get in a little groove of the cold front, because on the PCT, we were also in the highest snow year on record until maybe your year. Or was it the year after, before?
I think it was 11, 13 was a high snow year, and then nothing till 17.
17.
Yeah. Maybe 13 wasn't a high snow year.
I think it was 11 and 17.
17, 19, no.
Yeah. Because there is the class video from, I think, 11. I don't know. Did you ever watch the class videos that they make? So it was like a volunteer project where like someone would collect people's videos and photos from the year and like edit together like an hour-long video.
Oh, that's cool.
And so the one that I had found that I was watching was always the 2011 one, and it was just like the rivers and all the crazy shit.
It was crazy. I mean, I think in Yosemite alone, 9 people died.
Yeah.
No thru-hikers, but just from the over-engorged rivers and the little stream crossing that turns into a raging river crossing.
Yeah. Okay. AT wet year. What was the number? You said there was some obscene consecutive days of you experiencing rain.
All of the Shenandoahs, every single day was rain. And not like misty rain.
Yeah.
Like we woke up and our tent had inches of water in it multiple times.
Yeah.
And it was to the point where we just stopped caring, because we're like, nothing's going to dry out. We're going to be wet. We ended up one night seeking shelter in one of the fancy lodges, because we're like, we're going to spend $100 right now, because those vending machines look a lot better than what we got.
Yeah. And you must have been in Shenandoah early too.
Yeah.
Do you recall roughly what time of year that was?
I could guess, but I'd be lying.
Yeah.
So I don't want to guess and then have someone be like, no, actually you were young.
Yeah. What was your finish date on the AT?
That's a good question.
You did it in 4 months,
12
right?
years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't even know what I had for dinner last night. So yeah, I want to say it was mid-June. So I started February, March, April. So it would have been end of May, early June. Yeah.
That's crazy early. So you were probably in Shenandoah in
April.
Yeah, like early April maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing that breaks your spirit faster than cold rain.
No.
And
just bitter.
Yeah. Because most AT hikers listening to this are like, it was raining in Shenandoah. Yeah, like what's the big deal? Because most northbounders are there in May. It's not so bad when it's raining in May, but when it's raining in early April, that fucking sucks.
Yeah, it was, and just like the rest of the trail, there was no one out there. Yeah. So it was relatively lonely and quiet. Other than the Pizza Hut man that delivered pizza to us in Shenandoah, I don't think we saw a single person there. So. Props to that guy for actually coming out there.
A hero. So obviously people that haven't seen it already, and as it happens, know all about your PCT hike. What are some of the fun stories from the AT hike?
Fun stories from the AT hike. Let's see. Oh, actually, so I unfortunately actually just went to a funeral of a fellow who picked us up on the Appalachian Trail. His name was Andrew Humes, and we were in Massachusetts. We were walking into Great Barrington to get a resupply, and we're on the road, and up in that area there's lots of boarding schools, and we're just walking on the side of the road, and we're both friendly people, so anytime a car comes by we wave. Just why not? We have nothing else to do. So cars gone by, someone finally comes back, and we're sitting on the side of the road just having some snacks, and he kind of screeches to a halt as soon as he sees us, and he's a little ahead of us, and he rolls down his window. He's like, "You guys need a ride?" We're like, no, it's only 3 more miles to Great Barrington. We're fine, another hour or so, no big deal. He reverses his car on the road so that he's eye to eye with us, and he just looks at us. He's like, "I don't believe you get in." And we're like, all right, fine, why not? So we get in the backseat with his car, and his little 15-year-old daughter is sitting in the front seat. He just picked her up from the boarding school that we just passed, and we waved at him when he came to go pick her up, and was like, "Well, you guys look nice, so I figured I'd check in and see what you guys were doing." We're like, "Well, we're hiking the Appalachian Trail. We're just going into Great Barrington to get some more food." And he's like, No. You're going to come home with me, and, we'll take care of you. So we get to his house, and as soon as we get there, it says Long Pond Farm. We're like, "Oh, okay, interesting." We get into his house, and he's like, "Oh, don't put your stuff down here. We're going to walk next door to the annex, and you guys are going to spend the night in the annex." I'm like, what? So we walk. There's a full house, not like a little guest shed or anything, a full house. And we set our stuff down over there, and we go back into the main house, and he's got a little studio, and we're kind of sitting there. And Andy's a big musician, and so is Andrew. So they were jamming out, and I was cooking because I like to cook, and I was kind of trying to barter the friendliness by being like, "Oh, I'll cook dinner for everybody." So here we are, this 15-year-old girl being like, "Dad, what's going on? Who are these people? What they smell? Like, what?" And I'm in this kitchen, and all of a sudden the wife comes home, and Elizabeth, God love her, she just got back from Italy. She's a French woman, and Andrew said nothing about us. Oh. And Andrew and Andy are downstairs in the studio, and I'm upstairs.
He's not surprised that this wasn't like a surprise return.
She just had no idea. She was just like, "What's going on? Who are you?" Because I'm alone in her kitchen right now, and of course at this point, we may have had a little smoke, a little drink, a little this, and I'm just like, I froze, and I'm like, I ran downstairs, and I'm like, "Andrew, your wife is here." And
Are you wearing like rain gear? Are you wearing his clothes?
I was wearing my Go Light t-shirt, and
so you weren't doing laundry.
No, I wasn't doing laundry.
Like walking into like hiker clothing can be a real grab bag as well.
Yeah, at least I wasn't wearing the garbage bag or anything like that. It wasn't until a couple trips later that I visited that I was wearing their 1970s ski outfits and stuff like that. But that was another story, another time. So yeah, we ended up making dinner for them, and once she got past her anger, which was warranted, we ended up getting along very, very well. We kept in touch over the years, and him and his family actually helped support financially making the film as it happens. And I kept in touch with his family, and he just passed away a couple months ago. So I was just with them all, actually, a couple last week. So it was kind of nice to see them, and nice to bring the full circle, the full story back.
Yeah.
But that was one of the stories, and one of the reasons really that we started our organization, and what really prompted us to help other people, were that it didn't matter who you were, where you were from, if you had a whole other house, if you had a little tiny corner of your kitchen floor, everybody on the Appalachian Trail was willing and excited to help out hikers. Yeah. And I think that really made an impact on us. And it was like families like the Humes that really made us, or inspired us to give back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. It's that was the thing that I think took me by surprise the most. Like people had talked about the generosity that's on the AT, but until you experience it, it's just it restores your faith in humanity. I know it's trite at this point to say it, but like it is true. I feel like I need another long hike to get that, because I spend too much time online. I just see life through Twitter, and it's making me dark again. I need to get back out there on the trail and get like in some random hitch, because that's the real spice of life.
It really is. It gives you the perspective that we all need sometimes, that our bubble is just our bubble. And everybody is entitled to their own bubble, but sometimes it's important to understand and be in other people's bubbles and have other people in your bubble. And if you have people who don't want to pop your bubble, even if they don't understand it, most of the people giving out trail magic on the trails couldn't fathom being on a hike themselves. Yeah, they don't know why we're crazy enough to do it. Yeah, they just know they want to help.
Good segue. I'm going to jump the timeline here again, but we were, Jabba and I, PCT Southbound 2017, hiking. We're close to the finish at this point, like less than a week, a few days out from the southern terminus. And we're getting close to a road crossing, and I see a drone overhead. And this drone, you know, you don't think twice about seeing a drone. It is always a little jarring because you're in nature, and then all of a sudden you hear like this giant sounding insect. It kept getting closer and closer to me to the point where I thought I was getting attacked. Turned out it was Ian. He was flying his drone. He was just fucking with me, like legitimately flying it like 15 yards ahead of me. And like we have the video footage of like me just like giving it the mean mug stare. Yeah. And then I walk out to the road, and you're out there. You, for like probably 2 weeks, you were asking where I was and when I was going to be at the next road crossing. And I never put two and two together that you were like doing a surprise trail magic for us. So he shows up at the road crossing with like a full spread. He's got whiskey. You brought the full fixins out there. And I think at that point you slack packed us, right? Yeah. I think we dropped all of our stuff. Jabba and I probably had like 5 or 6 drinks at this point. We decide to drop off our packs and literally like run to Lake Moreno from there, which is probably 12 miles or so. Jabba got an injury that lingered for 6 months after that, doing that drunk run down to Moreno.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, he like sprained his foot or something. And then the trail magic really kicked off when we got to Lake Moreno. Like you had brought your grill. I forgot exactly the full setup, but we were also with Claire, former guest. I'm blanking on her name, the Olympic, the double gold medal athlete. That's right. Yeah, you had done trail magic for her too. Yeah, all these stories just come rushing all at once.
That was in a little bubble in my brain that just went, oh, hello.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that was awesome, because I was not expecting anything. Like I said, for a couple of weeks you were texting me like where I was going to be, and I think the last text you sent was like, shit, this is not going to work out, and then he just showed up. Yeah, that was fun, and it was especially fun because it was our last night on trail. It was like a perfect send off to finish the hike. So
yeah, your poor wife. I was messaging her on Facebook, and I don't think she was your wife at the time, right?
No. Fiance.
You were engaged? Yes, I was engaged.
So I'm just like, hey, I know your fiance. I'm trying to surprise him on trail. Can you tell me exactly where he is right now? Yeah. And she's just like,
I think California.
Maybe over here, but I don't know if I want to actually tell you.
Yeah. Had you met Jabba previous to that?
Nope. But as soon as he got there, he was like, oh, yo, he's just down a little bit. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go find him. And that's when I pulled out the drone.
I'm surprised you didn't throw rocks at it. If someone was flying a drone like that close to my face in the middle of nowhere and I didn't know have a suspicion of who it was, I'd be throwing rocks at it.
It was also the early day of drones where it's kind of like, this is kind of cool. What? I don't. Now it's definitely, oh, this is annoying. Yeah. Like,
let's
get it out of my face. Let's throw rocks at it.
I'm curious to get, what is your take on Jabba?
Oh, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great.
Yeah.
I mean, we only hung out for half a day. So.
Yeah. I love him. I wasn't like prompting you for anything, but like he's a strong personality. It's always fun to get people's first impression of him.
I mean, I love strong personalities. Yeah. I think, especially in the thru-hiking community, they shine.
Yeah. Jumping timeline again, going back geographically to the same place. Let's talk about the PCT. Bridge the gap for me from the finish of the AT 2009 to the start of the PCT in 2011. Like, are you and Andy talking pretty regularly? Like, at what point does the seed get planted for the PCT?
He's living at my mom's house.
Oh.
Yeah. So we finished the AT, And we come into New York, and he basically just moves in with me from Philly, where he was living. And the entire year and change, we were trying to figure out what to do, how to do it. How can we make this a big, exciting project? He was very much in the TV world at that time, so there was all types of pitches for TV shows and this and that and the other thing. We met a guy on the AT that we kind of were thinking about doing stuff with, and he was going to do the PCT with us. Another fellow who dropped out early on, and we never spoke to or heard from since. But yeah, it wasn't when or at what point are we going to get on the trail. It's just how many days until that point.
Yeah.
And we were very eager and excited. We had the going away party at my mom's house, and it was basically full on PCT. How do we make it happen?
Yeah. I remember very much enjoying your documentary As It Happens. It's over 1 million views now. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's insane.
I think it finally hit the 0.1 mark too. So yeah, it's exciting.
Do you know, this is my fun fact. I tried to not say this when we were eating pizza, but I don't usually get starstruck when we have guests on. I attribute at least 10 of those views to myself. And it wasn't by choice, no offense. But here's my breakup story. I had been dating a guy in California, the one that I said the accident led to Denver. But I had been dating this guy in California, and he was obsessed with the idea of the PCT, obsessed with it. And we lived together for a year in Cincinnati, and all he would do is play PCT videos. So that class video from 2011 and As It Happens were like the two weekly features that we would watch over and over and over. And so he was so into this idea of one day doing the PCT. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, let's do it. And he was like, no, I don't want to do it with you. You'll slow me down. Oh. And so I was like, okay, but it would be fun. Now that I've seen hundreds of hours of this just PCT propaganda. And so when we broke up, I didn't work at the summer camp anymore. And so I had a summer free for the first time. And I was like, fuck this. I'm going to go do that trail. I've watched so many hours of these videos. And that was the one where it was we just watched it on repeat. And I don't really, now that we do Backpacker Radio, it's we talk about the trail so much that to leave talking about the trail to go watch about the trail is a different level of psychotic. So I haven't really watched them the way that I was before that hike, but
nor should you. Let's be real.
Over 10 times. So
well, thank you for your views.
Yeah,
but,
you're welcome.
it was exciting to hear stories like that, and especially on the CDT when I meet people who are like, your video is the reason why I'm out here. And Andy did a fantastic job putting it together. And I think a lot of the draw of it is the music. And that was all from Andy and Andy's friends. So it was music that was created with the intention of telling a story. And the whole story comes together because of the music. And I think that's one of the reasons why you can put it on in the background and listen to it, because you don't need to hear the stupid things we're saying. It's just kind of fun to see the pretty pictures and listen to the pretty music.
Well, you have those cool effects too, right? There were the photos where the back was moving.
What is that technique called?
I believe it's called a hype.
You're looking to me for the answer. I don't know it.
Hyperplex or something.
Yeah.
He told me what it was at one point. I'm like, oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. It's definitely a signature of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, he basically cut out one part of the picture and just make it move with the other part of the picture. Yeah. So it would kind of give a video effect to our photos.
Yeah. It's been a very long time since I've seen the film, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but you guys are both behind the camera, right? You're both in charge of filming it?
Yeah, it's definitely more Andy filming, mainly because he's got more of the chops and he's got more of the interest. He has more of the skill set. He went to school for journalism. He had filmed documentaries before. So I was really there supporting Andy and filling in when he was too tired, or at the beginning, we definitely had times where we did scheduled handoffs of the camera. But we found out that he's going to spend 45 minutes on the flower and I'm not. So when we need the pictures of the flowers, we're just going to give him the camera.
Yeah. Yeah, how much scheming are you guys doing before you leave on like, all right, this is your responsibility, or is he? It just sounds like he's doing most of it.
Yeah, it was basically in his mind what we would be working on and how we could split up the workload. And I'll be honest, on the PCT especially, we started kind of butting heads a little bit because he was only focused on the filming aspect of it, and I was only focused on surviving. And sometimes I'd be like, this doesn't make sense. I don't want to do this right now. And he's like, that's why we're doing it right now. I'm like, yes, I get it, but I don't want to. And he's like, yes, I get it, but that's why we have to.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that made the documentary so real, was that there were many moments in it that I was very clearly done with it.
Yeah.
Both the trail, the filming, and just, the daily life of being a thru hiker.
Yeah. You guys do a good job in the documentary of capturing both the highs and the lows. And that's a challenge. I talked about this on the podcast in the past, but when you're in the midst of a hike, like those are the times where you're least thinking about documenting. And like you said, just surviving, or when something's going really well, you just want to experience it. So to whip out the camera and try to like capture that moment is, at least for me, does not come intuitively. Is that something that you...
No, it's not intuitive for me.
Yeah.
That's the point when Andy and I would be like, okay, so you want to get going so we don't get caught in the snowstorm that we're about to get caught in. I want to get caught in the snowstorm so that we can have a really cool scene. How can we get in between so we're not potentially dying, but we're also getting a cool shot?
Yeah.
And I will also say he was always the one walking back to pick up the camera because I was not going to do that.
Yeah, sure. I remember in the film also, maybe this was just played up for the drama of it, but you guys get caught in a snowstorm at the Muir Hut.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that was real. That was real.
What a place to get caught in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
Was that intentional? Is this
No,
one
no,
of the, hey, snow's coming, let's get caught in it?
No, it definitely was not intentional, because we got up to that point, and as soon as we got up to the hut, we were looking around and we saw that we were in a full-on whiteout. And looking north, it was all white, completely covered in snow, with a little crack for the river that was going down there. And we were just like, we don't want to navigate this in a whiteout. So we ended up staying up there because we didn't want to get stuck. And for the next 3 hours, it was a complete whiteout, and the whole shelter was shaking and vibrating.
Whoa.
Yeah, because of the winds being up so high up there, it's just, essentially is a giant whistle.
Yeah.
And it was very creepy, very intense. And that was one of those moments that I was like, we're not going forward. And Andy was like, we can go forward. And I'm like, no, we can stay here. It'll still be cool. I promise.
Yeah. That is both very fortunate that you happen to be at like the highest point with a shelter on the entire trail during a whiteout, and also terrifying because like you're in the middle of nowhere at that hut. What is it? Is it 12,000 feet there? Like,
I think maybe just under, but yeah, we didn't sleep very well that night.
Yeah.
As excited as we were to be in a shelter, like I said, because it was vibrating and humming, and I think there was a moment in the documentary where we're trying to capture that noise, and it goes silent for a second, and you can kind of hear it a little bit, but you could really feel that kind of hum and vibration.
Yeah.
It was intense, but we were very happy to be in there and not out there.
Yeah. I guess this segment's just like random parts of the film that I remember, and I'll get your commentary on it. But there's also a point in Washington where you guys are at like one of the steeper switchbacks where I think it's like completely fogged out, and you kick a rock off and like you could just hear it fall for miles below you.
Yeah. I will say, someone commented on that moment once and was like, that is terrible. Like, how could you do that? You could hurt someone. I want to make it clear that we were very loud. We were yelling to people before we did that to make sure that there was no one around us. But yeah, we were on a catwalk on the side of a mountain, and it was just fog everywhere. And there was a little rock that we kicked off the side, and we kept hearing it go down more and more. And I think it was good not to see where we were at that moment, because it would probably have been a little bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Thru-hiker motto.
Your film definitely hyped me up for the PCT, but it also scared me a little bit because like between that moment and the whiteout, like it was like, oh shit can happen out here.
Yeah, it was definitely. I'll never forget Section I on in Yosemite, because that's when there was really heavy snow and the rivers were really engorged, and there was a couple, I think it was Carrot Canyon, and there was a couple places where if you slipped, you were just straight down into a raging river, and like that was it.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a scary trail at times, but it was well worth it.
Are there any other standout moments, either from the film or something that you didn't capture? I'm assuming everything that was standout is probably in the film.
No, there's lots of stuff. I mean, we had to cut down a lot. It's still 90 minutes. It's still a long film, but it was brought down at least 30 minutes from our original cut. And we were like, who's going to really want to watch this for 2 hours? And I mean, the reality is probably a few people, but
yeah. You could do a director's cut for sure.
Right? We've been talking about that kind of another version of it. That's
the 15-year anniversary right around the corner.
Seriously, it's crazy. But we got picked up somewhere in, actually, ironically, Yosemite by this fella, and his name was Tom. And he was driving us back to the trail because we had gotten off at that point to go to Outdoor Retailer in Reno. So we hitchhiked from Northern California over to Reno because a lot of our sponsors were there and we wanted to show face and whatnot. And then he gave us a ride part of the way back. And we got an email from him a week later being like, the experience of meeting you guys was so impactful and so powerful and made me realize that I need to be living in the moment more and I need to spend more time with my family, that I've decided to retire. And he he gave us credit for his retirement, and that was kind of something that was very powerful to us, because the point of having the film was to get people outdoors, not necessarily on through hikes, but in their own adventures and their own personal adventures. And we wanted to be a source of inspiration for that. So to see the early kind of nods to that, and then fast forward 12, 15 years, and we have folks being like, oh, I saw that film more times than I care to count. And people on the trail being like, I hate you because I am on the trail now and it's all your fault. I had a couple guys, one in particular named Money, who just looked at me and was like, you. It's like, yeah, what?
Do you get recognized on all trails in the U.S. now?
No, just the big three, really. Yeah. I've been recognized on the AT and the CDT. I haven't really been on the PCT much since we released the film, but yeah, definitely the AT and the CDT people are like, wait a minute. And it's funny too, because a lot of the times thru hikers, in their very thru hiker way of not caring about normal people, be like, oh yeah, cool, you hike. Oh yeah, okay, I bet I hike more than you. Oh yeah, oh you did a thru hike. Okay, I still bet I hike more than you. Oh, you're triple count. Oh, okay, well maybe I don't hike more than you. Oh wait, maybe I've seen your. Oh yeah, oh my God, I don't know you. I know you. And it's kind of fun to watch the progression of not caring whatsoever to being like, oh wow, I really care.
You're the guy.
You're that guy.
Yeah, yeah. Also, correct me if I'm wrong here. Did you hike the AT in spandex shorts?
Oh yeah.
Sell us on that, because I don't know.
Man.
Does anyone do that?
I miss it. I'm not gonna lie. Andy was a long distance runner, and I was a rower. So in our athletic careers, it was spandex. It was just, that's how we operate, and it was just comfortable. It kept everything in place. It wicked the sweat. It was breathable.
Did you ever deal with chafing on the AT?
I deal with chafing every day.
Yeah.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah. I was going to say, because if you avoided chafing on the AT because of spandex shorts, I'm willing to convert, but...
Don't you wear women's leggings?
Yeah, I don't hike in them. That's on the PCT.
That's
I
just
use,
Friday nights, right?
Yeah, exactly. We paint our toenails. It's sort of a thing. No, I just use the women's merino leggings as like a warming layer, and the women's leggings were shorter, therefore they weighed less. It was literally just trying to shave an ounce off of my clothes.
Well, I did have a women's sleeping bag when I started the Appalachian Trail after I got to mountain crossing, because I was like, I am so cold. I'm going to get another sleeping bag to put inside of my sleeping bag. And since the women's sleeping bag was a little smaller, it fit inside my sleeping bag really nicely. And it also has more down in the chest and the feet. So it was a good move for the next 2 months to be sleeping with 2 sleeping bags.
Just jumping all over the place as usual. Another thing that you recommended for me gear-wise in the AT, which I feel like was popular when I did the AT and then went away and is making a resurgence now, is the silk liner for the sleeping bag. Do you still use the liner?
I do still use the liner. I like the liners because I, unlike most thru hikers, actually wash my gear throughout the hike. And washing the liner is much easier than washing a full sleeping bag. And I think it just makes it a lot more comfortable when I have a clean liner. More importantly, though, I'm not sticking to the, 10D material on the sleeping bag.
Do you roll around a lot in your sleep?
Yeah.
Or you do?
I do.
See, because I try to get into this liner thing so much. I've got the fleece one and I've got the silk one. And for me, I decided that the issue that I face is I roll around so much that I just start like tightening it around me as I roll. And then I wake up and I'm all like, nothing is worse than this feeling.
Yeah. So I will recant my statement on silk liners. I'm not a huge fan of silk liners anymore. I think originally I was a big fan of those because they were the lightest, but Cool Max is my preferred type these days, which is, Sea to Summit makes them, but it's just like a stretchy, almost spandexy kind of cotton feeling material, and it tends to be a little heavier, maybe 8 ounces, 9 ounces instead of 6 ounces, but I find it to be way more comfortable, and they tend to be a little wider, so a little easier to roll around in. And because they're more stretchy than the silk, you're not kind of getting that tight squeeze that sometimes you get.
Yeah. And I would bet with a normal start date in the AT, there's probably a handful of nights at least where the liner is enough where you don't even need a quilt or a sleeping bag. I remember sleeping like shit a lot in the mid-Atlantic states just because like I could never get comfortable. The sleeping bag was too warm. Nothing was too cold. Like the liner is probably the happy medium.
Yeah, I think the liner with the quilt is a great balance because, like you said, when it's warmer, you can just use the liner and then throw the quilt over part of you or not over you or just over your feet or whatever. Yeah. But I like the liner. I like having a pillow. I like having the air mattress. I like having a full bed setup.
Yeah. What's your go-to pillow?
The Nemo Pillow. Yeah, I was rocking that for all of the PCT and CDT, actually. Yeah. Thermarest
sent me something like 7 years ago as like a throw-in. Like I get a lot of stuff that's not like the PR reps just don't know what backpackers use and they threw in a pillow. I was thinking that was going to be one of those things that I just never use. And I think I've used it on every backpacking trip since is like, once you start using a pillow, it's very hard to go back to like sleeping on like a fleece mid-layer or something like that.
I was gonna say that's part of why I haven't started yet. Cause one of my friends that I hike with a bunch, she uses a pillow. And one time she was like, just give it a try for a little bit of this drive out to the trail, just like see how it feels. I think I fell asleep right away in the car and I didn't want to give it back. And now I'm like, oh, I need to get a pillow. There's so many options. Like I've looked at a couple of them, but in my mind, I'm like, if I start using a pillow, I need to commit to this because I'm not going to stop.
Yeah.
You're never going to want
Right now I use a pile of clothes, like whatever's left in my bag after I empty it.
And that's
or my food bag, like either whatever is a shape that is slightly elevated, dirty socks, whatever is what my head goes on.
And that's great when you've got nothing else. But then when you start realizing you can have something else.
Yeah.
And then you put that on top of your little pile of clothes. So you really got some height there. It's a game changer.
Are there any other gear or apparel items that are maybe considered non-traditional that you feel strongly about?
I tend to be a pants and long sleeve hiker. Actually, this shirt is the shirt that I hiked the entire CDT in.
Elise noticed that when you got here. She was like, "That's the CDT shirt." I was like, "What?"
Nice. Yeah.
Calling you out.
Good job. Good.
I heard you guys talking.
All right.
Oh, I thought you just knew.
No, they're talking about the smell.
Oh, is that why you smelled
Zach,
that?
Zach smelled me to,
Yeah, no,
to
I
make
saw
sure
that.
that
I was like,
wasn't
look,
a
Elise, they're doing
biohazard.
boy stuff. They're smelling each other.
Oh, how's your shirt smell?
I was like,
Oh,
that's cute.
I hadn't seen him in 7 years, and within 3 seconds, I'm literally
Yeah.
like
No, I was
leaning my head
watching.
into a bosom to give him a big whiff.
I was like, that's a cute hello.
Hey, we're through hikers. You know, that's how we say hello. We're like dogs. You know?
Yeah. Turn
I
around, let
stepped
me
his
smell
butt.
your
He
butt.
sniffed my butt.
Exactly.
It was very fun. Yeah,
But yeah, long pants too, which I know is very controversial.
it is for me. I'm a shorts guy, and I'm deadly afraid of ticks, so it's hard to rectify those two thoughts.
Yeah, for me, my calves get really badly sunburnt, and no matter how much they build up over time, it's painful. So I just want to avoid it at all times. So yeah, I get the pants that have the vents on the side, so you can open up and show some thigh to all the strangers on trail.
There you go.
Yeah.
You could really have a great outfit in the making with some knee-high socks
Oh,
and
yeah.
those spandex shorts.
I've been there.
The calves would be safe.
And especially down south, they
Yeah,
love
they
that.
really enjoy that.
Oh man, we went through a couple areas where we'd pass like Boy Scouts or Christian camp groups or something when they have the full canvas green pants and like the flannel jackets and everything. And here we come in a bright red spandex tank top and Under Armour shorts. And they are literally averting their eyes. They're like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? What's up? Oh, yeah, out through hiking. All right, cool." Yeah, it was a sight to behold for sure.
Tell us about the New Explorers Award.
Yeah, so in 2019, I was awarded the New Explorer Award for an expedition in Mongolia in 2018. And 2018 was a very popular year because that was also the year that Andy did the Pacific Northwest Trail and filmed his next series, Thru. So there was a moment when he was like, "Hey, yeah, I'm thinking of doing this. Do you want to join?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, of course I want to join." And then, "Oh, it's probably going to be starting in this month." "Well, I just got asked to do this trip in Mongolia. I'm not quite sure what's happening yet." And then I found out that they wanted me to lead an expedition in Mongolia to recreate the original path of Roy Chapman Andrews, who is an American explorer from 100 years ago and became the executive director of the Natural History Museum and is also the current day basis or the real world basis for Indiana Jones. So most Indiana Jones kind of ploys are based off of him, the whip and everything. So we recreated his expedition with the Institute of Paleontology and Geology of Mongolia, and we mapped out the entire route with drone tech so that we could provide the scientists with enhanced maps of the location so that they could pinpoint areas that they could go prospecting for dinosaurs. Throughout that 3-week expedition, we found over 250 different dinosaur bones and potentially 3 new species of dinosaurs because they were unable to identify them at the time. Dinosaur eggs, turtle shells, fish bones, which pulling out a fish bone in the middle of the Gobi Desert is pretty surreal, being like, oh, once upon a time, this was actually a lake.
Yeah.
But I basically handled all the logistics, put everything together. The Hong Kong chapter of the Explorers Club was the founding partner, if you will, and they're the ones who kind of got the sponsors together. Infinity Motocars was the sponsor, so we did a bunch of filming for them out in the Gobi as well.
Did you get a car?
Unfortunately, I didn't, but I did break one or two. I
On the trip?
cannot confirm, but it's possible that a few of the donuts,
Allegedly.
the few of the donuts that I may or may not have been doing while filming, caused some bending in axles and stuff. But
Yeah.
another story.
That sounds like every little boy's dream.
It really was, and it was literally the one and only thing that could prevent me from going on another thru hike.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, can we wait a couple months? Can we push it to next year? And he was already so far down that path that it was the fact of the matter was it wasn't going to happen between the two of us at that point. So it was kind of a bummer, but in the grand scheme of things, I ended up getting an award for that expedition. So I was happy that I made the decision not to go on the Pacific Northwest Trail, even though once a month, maybe I'm like, fuck, I really wish I went on the
Two good
PNT.
options.
Yeah.
It sounds like you didn't suffer.
No, it was wonderful. I love traveling and meeting people of different cultures and different lifestyles and backgrounds, and really just I think it's something that we get from through hiking is we can be friends with pretty much anybody as long as they're interested or willing to have a talk to us.
Mm-hmm.
So
what other international adventures have you been into?
I worked in Bhutan for about 2 years on a project called the King's Challenge, and that was actually where I met the gentleman named Michael Barth who brought me on to the Mongolia project. But that program was a concept proposed by the King of Bhutan, and his idea was basically, we have this amazing country. We have, in 267 kilometers north to south, we have the tropical rainforest, and we have the high Himalaya mountains and everything in between. 7 different biospheres, I believe. Wouldn't it be cool if we took business owners from around the world and say, hey, look at our great country. We have all of this to offer you, and we're just ready for it. Because at that time, over half of the population was under the age of 25. So the royal family and the government was really trying to figure out creative ways to build infrastructure and jobs and a responsible kind of modernization, if you will, of the country. And so my job essentially was to travel into a different corner of Bhutan for a month, do some crazy stuff, go down places no one's ever been down. I was the first white guy people had seen in many villages, and it was my job to find one day out of my month to stitch together a 14-day journey so that we could bring a group of, I think it ended up being 12 or 13 people around the country. So I had one day of helicopters up to the high Himalayas, one day of elephant riding down in the tropics, river rafting and bike riding and hiking and this and that and the other thing. And that was a really exceptional way to learn how to serve the people that you you want to serve the people of the countries you travel in. Because a lot of times we, as travelers, go into a place thinking, hey, I'm here for vacation. I'm here to experience the culture. I'm here to do this. But sometimes it's nice to say, what do you need? Because I'm coming into your home. How can I help you? And that's kind of what being in Bhutan taught me, was they are willing to give me anything that I need because we're 16,000 feet up on the side of a mountain and I'm thirsty. And they're happy to give that to me. And they don't care who I am, where I come from, what I'm doing, but I'm there and I need something. They're willing to give it so that they know when it's flipped, that I'm in a position to give them something that I'm thinking of them as well. So it really was a good balance of learning the people, the culture, and just mountainous cultures in general, how truly open and welcoming they are.
That sounds like a dream job. How did you fall into that?
Yeah, I'm a member of the Explorers Club, and through that organization, I was doing like weekend trips where we'd go up to the Adirondacks, just a group of members, and the president at the time came on one of my trips, and another member who was Michael Barth reached out to him and was like, hey, I need someone for logistics for this program in Bhutan. Do you know anyone good? Alan Nichols was the president. He just came off of one of my trips. He's like, well, I just went on a fun little weekend trip with this other member, Ian, hit him up. 2 weeks later, I was in Bhutan. So it was a pretty fortunate experience overall, but a lot of people sometimes tend to say that, oh, well, that's very lucky, or, everything just aligns. And my response to that is, you have to place yourself in the position for things to align. So for people who want to do the things that are the dream jobs or like the childhood dreams that you couldn't even think of as an adult. My attitude is just throw yourself in that world and wait until something happens. I was the only person under the age of 45 in the club at the time. And I think by joining when I was 22, I want to say, I reduced the average age of the club by at least 5 years. So going into this otherwise old timers organization and being like, hey, I want to be around you guys. I want to know what you're doing. You guys are doing cool stuff. Well, next time you need something cool, give me a call. And that's how it happened.
That's sick. What is the Explorers Club? I only know about it through you, but I don't know like what the actual organization is.
So it's essentially just a group of folks who explore. From 1904, excuse me, it was an organization where every person who's done anything exploration based has been a member. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, James Cameron, the list goes on. Basically, anyone who's done anything. We have flags that have gone up to space, that have also gone to Marianas Trench and to the top of Everest and everything like that. And essentially, it just brings like-minded individuals together so that when we're all sitting here having a chat and we're like, oh, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And then that person over there is like, well, actually, I know someone in Antarctica. And then you have someone over there is like, well, I've got someone with a boat in Argentina. And it's basically with all those little threads, you unify something and then these projects come out. And it's also a good place for budding explorers and scientists to go for grants if they want to fund a project, stuff like that.
Can anyone join?
Anyone can attempt to join. However, you need to be sponsored by current members. So you have to have 2 current members sponsor you. And the big tag is, how do you help advance human knowledge? Because back in the day, exploration was easy. This hasn't been charted. I drew it on a map. I explored this. Perfect. But now everything's relatively mapped out. So exploration is more metaphysical, and it's the exploration of the world and how we learn about it and how we grow and how we build with the environment as opposed to on the environment, etc.
And I think we're getting toward the end of the time for the interview portion. This is something that we started to chat about briefly before we started recording. I think it would be interesting to dive back into it. Is you mentioned obviously your first thru-hike was in 2009, and then you did the CDT in 21. A lot has changed in that time.
Yeah.
What were the things that stood out to you in terms of how the world of thru-hiking has shifted in that 12-year period, something like 13?
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember when I was doing the PCT, people were always telling me, there's a saying, you do 1 trail or you do 3 trails. And ever since I finished the PCT, I had that looping on in my head for 10 years. Oh, if you don't do 1, you do 3. It's just a matter of time. So in that decade time, the biggest thing that really stood out to me was my pack weight dropped 5 pounds. But I didn't do anything. I didn't really change anything. I mean, obviously I got new gear, but it was the same type of gear. It was the same individual item, but the tech and the construction has just gotten so much better that everything's gotten much more lightweight and smaller. And there's more of a community. I think one of the difficult things with the PCT in 2011 was it was pre-wild. So no one really knew about the PCT. I think that year that we started, only 1,100 people started, which ironically was about the same amount of people on the CDT when I did it in 2021. So it was kind of interesting to see the CDT in a similar state to the PCT when I did the PCT. Because when I did the PCT, it was all AT hikers and people around hikers, even people whose backyard it ran through. They're like, the PCH? The Pacific Coast Trail?
Yeah.
What? No. So it's interesting to see now that there's so much community around it and people supporting each other, that I met more people on the CDT than I did on the PCT, even though I think it was more spread out on the CDT in terms, there wasn't quite as much of a bubble.
Yeah.
And it was just interesting to see the perception of people change. And of course it was, during COVID. So that was a whole nother aspect of things going on. Like, how do we support each other with different views and love each other, even though we hate everything about each other? So it was interesting.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, I want you to stick around for segments if you can swing it time-wise. Before we do red carpet, let people know where they should keep up with you, any future projects you've got going on, just whatever you want the Backpacker Radio listeners to be aware of.
Yeah, so Modern Explorer Inc. INC is kind of how I market my adventure side of things. The day-to-day these days, I've been building tours for museum travels called Arrangements Abroad. So you can check out that company and what we're doing there. But yeah, I tend to keep a low profile in between projects. So you won't hear much from me until I'm out and about. I'm more of a guy who sits on the outskirts of the spotlight. I'm always close to the spotlight, but I never really am quite in it. So you'll know when I'm in the spotlight because I'm forced to be in the spotlight and I'm actually out there doing it.
Yeah.
Because I think, actually, sorry to interrupt, but I remember one time I was trying to be in the spotlight to do the AZT, and we were talking about it, and that was when I was going to go unsupported.
That's right.
And I carried 30 days worth of food on my back to start the Arizona Trail. And if anyone's done that, the first 6 miles of the Arizona Trail are straight up from like 1,000 feet to 9,000 feet or something stupid like that. So it was a rough way to start. And I ended up not doing that. I ditched the food, shipped some up ahead. So after that moment, I kind of reserve telling what I'm doing ahead of time because life happens and things change, and I don't like going back on my words.
Yeah, I understand that. Actually, I do have one more question. Thank you to our sponsor, LMNT, drink element, LMNT.com/trek. This is the stay salty question. Give me your hottest take about anything in the outdoor community or backpacking specifically.
Let's see. That's a tough question.
Yeah, you can take it in any direction you want. Alternatively, this isn't really on brand.
Honestly, I didn't even know what hot take meant until just last year.
Really?
So.
The other option B here is your best poop story.
Ooh, best poop story. I mean, the places we poop are more beautiful than the places everybody vacation in. So literally any moment I'm pooping on the trail, I'm usually happier than when I'm on vacation.
It's kind of the cross section of a hot take and a poop story.
Yeah,
so
right, that's my hot take.
Yeah.
My hot take is pooping is better on the trail than life is in regular life.
We call those poivs. Poops with a view.
Yes, absolutely.
Ian, Dusty, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
You're sticking around for segments?
Yeah, let's do it.
Is there any reason to break? Should we just jump right into it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
And break.
Trek Propaganda. This will be quick. This is from our managing editor, who's been on the podcast, Kelly Floro. Everything you need to know about planning an international thru-hike. You probably can relate to a lot of this. I'm just going to be very brief with it because I want to get to the other segments. But this is from an American's perspective. Hiking abroad covers considerations for visas, and she recommends a resource called Passport Index, which allows people to see their visa allowances in other countries, cell phone plans, travel insurance, cultural differences, and much more. So if you're planning on hiking abroad, highly recommend checking out that article, which is available in the show notes. Okay, question of the day. Chance, this is yours.
Yeah.
And I guess fitting since we got off a plane 2 hours ago.
Yeah. I thought of this one as I had done it. So it was kind of like me sitting there getting self-conscious. And the question is it messed up to bring airport terminal food onto the plane with the intention of eating it once you're in your seat?
For me, the answer is no, and I've never even considered that it would be. So maybe I'm inconsiderate about this, but I'm the guy that gets Shake Shack and then we'll sit down immediately and just devour like a double.
Well, that's my thought too. But then I was in the moment thinking about the smells and how the plane doesn't have windows that open and how everyone's sitting so close to each other.
But they've got those good filters, the HEPA filters.
Yeah.
Cleans things out pretty quickly. It has to suck out all the...
I would say it depends on what the food is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you're bringing like microwave shrimp or something, maybe you're
Yeah, if you're bringing a fish sandwich on, you're immediately getting booted off that
yeah,
plane.
yeah,
Okay, so no fish.
yeah.
No fish. No fish. No super sticky things. But also at airports, I don't know if you noticed, the food doesn't quite smell as much as normal food.
They
Do they
probably
have
consider
fish at
that.
airports?
You could probably. I mean,
I think
I
it's
had breakfast at McDonald's. They probably have the McFish or whatever the fish fillet. I don't know if maybe they nixed that from
But
the
I think
airport menu.
they purposefully do not have super smelly food available at the airport because people are not considerate enough to think about it.
That's a good point.
But that being said, there's still hard-boiled eggs available at those little things. So
fair.
we'll see.
Fair.
Who knows?
This is the headline segment that I want to get to. I'm really happy that you're here for it. This is the Triple Crown of New York things, and this is so broad-based. This is just like, I would love to get your perspective on things from an actual New Yorker that lives here and knows the city. I'm going to be doing mostly the stereotypes, the things that I think of New York. But yeah, this is the Triple Crown of New York things. Snake draft. I'll start.
Cool.
Bagels.
Damn it.
When I think of New York, I just think of good bagels.
Yeah.
And I know that every New Yorker complains that they can't get as good of bagels in any other city relative to New York City.
That's
It's true.
actually a food I would love for people to bring onto a plane. Like,
A
just
bagel?
make the
Yes.
whole plane smell like a fresh bagel.
Yeah. What's your go-to New York bagel? Are you just doing a bagel with cream cheese? Or are you doing...
No, there's a place up by me. It used to be called Pete's. Now it's called Zimmy's. And they do flagels. I've talked about this before, but flagels are flattened bagels. So just take a bagel and flatten it. So my
Just don't ask for it to be scooped out here.
yeah, no, because then they scoop out the middle. That's the best part. They just take it out.
That's crazy to
Yeah,
me.
just
You'll get kicked
flatten
out in
it.
New York for that.
Yeah, who
It's
wants
terrible.
the crust of a bagel?
Exactly. It's like, hey, can I have a sandwich, but can you keep the middle part of the bread out of it?
Yeah.
So flagels, they just flatten it. You still get all the good bread, but there's less bread in every bite because it's flat.
Right.
And so on that, you do egg, cheese, hash brown. There's a place that does the hash brown patties on it. And then you just cover the whole thing in hot sauce.
Hash brown patty's a strong move.
It is delicious. I have so many photos of them on my phone because every time I would get one when I no longer lived in New York, I had to document it and save it. And then there would be times in Denver where I just go back and look at it. Be like, oh, to have that again.
How does Rosenberg's compare to a New York bagel?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But you can't, they don't do the hash brown patties.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can't get the same thing, and I don't think they have flagels.
Yeah.
But Rosenberg's is the closest.
Yeah.
And it's got to be the patties. Like
Sure.
the McDonald's
Yeah.
hash brown
Yeah.
patties.
Flat
Otherwise,
patty.
it doesn't work the same.
Yeah. All right.
I'm sure you could shave some potatoes and make it similar, but it
not the
doesn't
same.
look
Yeah,
the same.
this is different. You're up next.
Well, I mean, pizza's number one. And it's really, really true. I eat pizza twice a week at least.
Yeah.
It's my go-to. It's delicious.
We just got like the first place that was recommended on DoorDash, a large pepperoni pie, and it was fucking good. Like, it's not the best pizza I've ever had, but it's very like that would be a place that I would go out of my way for in Denver. So yeah, definitely stood up.
The people. So I was here last month, and I was cracking up at this thing. We were walking to where we were staying, and there was a homeless guy sitting on just like, where they sit on the side of the building, and this like businessman was walking past him holding a bag of chips, and the homeless guy is just heckling him. He's like, that's not real food, those aren't real chips. And the guy was like talking back. He's like, I know, I just like them. He goes, they were made in a factory, they weren't made on a farm. And like they're having this interaction that's like not mean, right? Like they're both enjoying it. And it's just like also hilarious because you're absolutely shitting on what the guy's eating in a friendly way.
Yeah.
And I just think the people are so great.
Yeah.
New Yorkers are very interesting people.
Yeah. Fascinating.
We just don't really care
Yeah.
about people's opinions. So we're just going to say what we say,
Yeah.
for better or worse.
I saw there was some study that showed that there's a direct correlation between the population of a city and the speed at which people walk in the city. So like, because New York is huge, people just walk at a much faster pace compared to any small town. But it even correlates with the size of the city. Like people walk faster in New York than they do in Chicago.
It's because we got places to be.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Nothing's worse than a slow walker on a New
Nothing.
York City street.
Yeah. You get
The biggest tidbit to anyone traveling to New York is if you are slowing down, just pull over to the side. Just think of sidewalks as streets.
Yeah.
If you're driving a car and you need to stop, pull over to the side. You're not going to stop in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
You're not going to go into the other lanes. You just move.
Yeah.
Or if there's more than two of you, you don't all need to walk next to each other.
Single file line.
Thank you.
Consolidate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge.
All right, go ahead.
My second one, New York things. The Buffalo Bills. Go Bills.
Yeah. We're
Fuck
good.
yeah.
We're getting outside of the
What's up?
city.
Oh, that's right. You're leaving the city. I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
we're
state
talking
of
about New York State. I got it.
We kept it vague. We kept it vague.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You got to remember, to a New Yorker, New York is New York City.
Yeah.
but Buffalo Bills are the only New York football team.
Fair.
Yeah, the two are in Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Their stadium's in Jersey.
Yeah.
The New York Giants
Yeah.
are not in New York.
New Jersey Giants. The New Jersey Jets.
Do the Giants and Jets share a stadium?
Yes, they do.
I think they could afford their own, but
Yeah.
probably a good thing to
Space.
conserve. Yeah. In Europe, number 2.
If you've never been to the sea, I'd say walking across the Brooklyn Bridge.
Mm.
It's one of those things that it's super touristy, it's super silly, but it's really pretty and it's easy, it's cheap, and finding cheap, fun things to do in New York City is very difficult. And going between the South Street Seaport and Dumbo is actually pretty nice.
Is that close to us? We're in Brooklyn. Can we walk to the bridge from here?
No. we're more up.
Yeah.
That's down.
Okay. This could be either in an AT context or the city context, but the delis. I went to I know this is a very popular deli, but a friend recommended it the last time I was here, is Katz Delicatessen. And I think I paid like $20 for a Reuben, and this was more than 10 years ago, so I imagine it's much more now. It was legitimately the best sandwich I've ever had. And it was like second place isn't close. And I typically go in with somewhat of a skeptical mindset when someone builds something up like that for me, and it lived up to the hype and then some. So yeah, I also remember just good delis hiking through the trail in New York is like just everything you get is good.
Was I still half asleep on the plane, or were you Google Mapsing that deli?
I wanted to see how close it was. It's not that far from Penn Station. Yeah, I would like to go back, but I also am aware that there's a lot of good food here, and we probably don't even have time to do anything other than travel.
As It Happens was actually almost a food documentary.
Yeah,
And it almost was the story of all of our meals across the PCT. And after the third stop, we were like, maybe not. But we're trying to. It was hard, especially at the beginning, to build a documentary without actually knowing what you're filming.
sure.
So we're trying to think of like the themes, and then we realized the theme is
Just
us
hiking the AT,
walking.
buddies
Yeah.
hiking. Yeah. My last one. This is kind of a scattershot. I apologize in advance, but popular media portrayals of New York City, and I'll narrow it down a little bit. When I think of New York City, I think of Billy on the Street, I think of Elf, and I think of Home Alone 2. Those three things, that's how I've learned about New York City, is those three things specifically. And probably Home Alone 2 stands out the most just because it was the first one.
Cocktails for me, the Tom Cruise movie in the early 90s. That was quintessential New York. That, I think, was the heyday of New York. It was still a little dirty, but it was cleaning up, getting cleaner and safe, but it wasn't quite as sterile as we are now. I feel like nowadays we're a little too gentrified, a little too, oh no, this place is where you want to be, this place is where you don't want to be, etc. Before it was just watch what you're doing.
Yeah.
Be smart about it. You're fine.
Yeah. I was going to ask about the overall vibe of the city now, because I know everywhere got weird during COVID. Does it feel like things are back to pre-COVID normalcy?
Yeah, things are definitely back in terms of the energy, the amount of people just moving around. I think the biggest change post-COVID, people don't really care about people anymore. It's very interesting. New Yorkers never, like I said earlier, never care about your opinion as long as it doesn't interfere with them. And I feel like now everybody is sharing their opinion and making it other people's problem. In a real world scenario, in the smallest thing that I can think of, people on the subway stand in front of the doors when the doors open now. Which, when I was growing up, it was always common sense. If you walk into the middle so that keep the doors free flowing. If you want to stand back at the door after it closes, that's fine. Just move over to the side. If you want to step outside so that people can go in, that's cool too. But now people don't care at all.
Yeah.
And they will stand in your way. You will have to push them. People are just less friendly. Not that they were friendly before, but now they just don't want to have
it went from little consideration to no consideration.
Yeah. and in fact, the opposite of it. They want to do what they want to do, even if it's, at a detriment to you. So.
My last one is Rat Kings.
I actually know what this is.
Yeah. So every time I'm in New York, mostly if I'm using the subway, but if you try to find a rat, typically you can. So it's a goal. Every time I come, I want to see a rat. I don't like rats, but I think it's cool. Where else do you see them?
Yeah.
But Rat Kings are where a bunch of the rats, like their tails tangle together and then they knot up and then they just like move as one force. And it is
that forever? Like, do they get untangled?
I don't know. I've never seen one.
Yeah.
But that's my like holy grail is like I try to see a rat every time. I have not seen a Rat King yet. And I know they're real.
I love the name Rat King.
A little crown of rats.
Yeah.
So dramatic.
Just moving as one.
Yeah.
I was walking down the street yesterday and there was one of those trash bins with the lids over it. And squeals coming out of that trash bin. It was something out of a movie. There was at least 10 rats in this thing that they were clearly trapped because they were fighting. And it was,
Yeah.
my girlfriend and I walked past and we're like, just keep walking.
Isn't there some documentary about the rats specifically in New York?
Yeah, there was a Nat Geo special on the rats. We had a rat czar for a little bit. They might still be in power.
Like CZAR?
Yes. It was their official title.
That's when multiple rat kings get together. They become the czar.
No, it was basically our government position to try to combat the rat problem.
Huh. Weren't they unleashing like some breed of dog on?
They were doing all sorts of wacky things. And I think they finally have come to the conclusion that
The rats win.
trash bins are the answer.
Oh yeah, I saw that the revolutionary new thing of
Yeah.
introducing trash bins.
I know. Isn't that a crazy concept?
The internet was
Putting
going
your
wild with
trash
that.
in the bins.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I don't know if the rat czar is still in power or if that was their big idea and they're like, actually, you know what? Maybe we should have paid this person. But yeah.
I like my first thought a little bit better, which was I thought that the rats were getting like territorial and having turf wars, and that they had like there was one head rat,
Gangs in New York,
and that like people were trying to find it to control the problem because he was like the kingpin.
Yeah.
Peaky Blinders of rats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Sweet.
Rats are bigger than dogs over here, so.
Yeah, I remember being shocked that the breed of dog that they use on it wasn't even that big either. It's not like they're unleashing like German Shepherds. It was like
a Chihuahua.
It was like a terrier of some kind. Yeah, yeah. Triple Crown of New York things. Let us know in whatever social post what you guys think. Mailbag. This is the shortest mailbag of all time. I'll take it.
Of course you will.
What episode was cast with the Sawyer rep that talked about permethrin? Michael. I'll have to look it up. But that was with Travis Avery.
It's in red right below it.
Oh.
Rachel looked it up for you. Just keep reading.
Episode 204, Little Skittle, Travis Avery, and Trail Days 2023 from June 5th, 2023. So yeah, if you guys want, I didn't read past the comment, obviously.
He puts it in red.
But yeah, if you guys want to learn about lots of things Sawyer related, and we talk about the backstory. We talk about pirates a lot on that one.
Yes.
Talk about Gale Sayers a little bit.
I wish I would remember the pirate stuff more often.
Yeah.
I always forget it and I need to remember it.
Yeah.
Go check that episode out if you want to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. If you guys want to leave us a mailbag, podcast at thetrek.co. Take the review.
Yep. Best backpacking show. This is from / semicolon, parenthesis, $symbol, @symbol. 5 stars. You guys rock. That is all I have to say about that. Keep up the great job. Smiley face.
Sweet. Thank you. Short and simple to the point. If you guys want to hear your review read on this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us any number of stars, just not 1, 2, 3, or 4. And if you screenshot your review and email us at podcast@thetrek.co, we will send you a sticker as well. Thank you to today's title sponsor, LMNT. Drink LMNT, LMNT.com/trek for a free sample pack with any order. We are giant fans of LMNT. I legitimately have at least one of these every single day. I can't think of the last day that I haven't had one. It makes water taste better, but especially on the trail when you're sweating, electrolytes are very important. I got hyponatremia on the AT, but yeah, I'm just addicted to these things now. I drink one every single day.
Who likes drinking that much water anyway?
Even if you're not on a trail, the only reason I'm sitting vertically right now after the hangover I had Sunday morning is because of it. It is like I go out of my way if I know I'm having any alcohol at night to make sure that there is a water bottle with LMNT in it next to my bed, and it is night and day.
Yeah.
How terrible I feel in the morning versus like me being able to get up and actually do anything.
Yeah. And I will say with that, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure. If you just drink a liter of LMNT before you go to bed, you'll wake up feeling so much better than trying to play catch up after the fact. But yeah, LMNT is awesome. Thank you to them for making this trip possible. Again, that's drinklmnt.com/trek for a free sample pack with any order, which means you get to sample all of the wonderful flavors with whatever order you get. Super big thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Andrew Austin McDaniel, Ben Love, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Fables,
Christopher Marshburn, Coach from Marion Outdoors, Dane,
Ish,
Derek Cook, Eric Casper,
The Friendly Ghost,
Eric Hoffman, Jillian Daniels, Greg Knight, Greg McDaniel, Griffin Haywood, You Bring Me a Beer, Haley Buckingham Palace, Liz Seeger, Patrick C. Cialo, Rebecca Brave, Sawyer Products, Spam, Timothy Hahn,
Solo,
and Tracy Trigger.
Fonz.
You can follow us on social at Backpacker Radio on Instagram and TikTok, at Backpacker Pod on X, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Ian. What's your social?
Ian R. Man.
It's super simple. Chance?
I'm Juliana_Chauncey on Instagram, Juliana Chauncey on YouTube, and you can get my book Hiking from Home, a long-distance hiking guide for family and friends on Amazon.
Appalachian Trials is my book, in which Ian writes the gear chapter in that one.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for being awesome.
I still have your signed copy on my bookshelf.
Let's fucking go. I think you got the first
Yes,
copy.
he sent me a signed copy.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think you got the first copy, actually. Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on YouTube. What's up, YouTube?
Hi, Internet.
I didn't know where the camera was for a second. And that is it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.
Bye.